Erving Goffman's Stigma, Notes on the Management of Spoiled Identity, 1963, remains one of the most influential sociological works exploring the complexities of social identity, stigma, and interpersonal interactions. In this seminal work, Goffman delves into how individuals with stigmatized identities navigate social life, manage their self-image, and respond to societal expectations. This analysis is not only deeply sociological, but also profoundly psychological, shedding light on how societal perceptions shape both individual and collective behavior. Understanding stigma. Goffman defines stigma as an attribute that deeply discredits an individual, reducing them from a whole and usual person to a tainted, discounted one. Stigma arises when an individual possesses an attribute, behavior, or reputation that deviates from societal norms and expectations. However, Goffman emphasizes that stigma is not inherent in the individual, but is a product of social interaction. It exists in the dynamic between the stigmatized and the normals, those who conform to societal expectations. He categorizes stigma into three main types. 1. Physical deformities, visible disabilities, physical anomalies, or chronic illnesses. 2. Character blemishes, perceived moral failings, mental disorders, or behaviors deemed socially unacceptable, e.g., addiction, criminal records. 3. Tribal stigmas, stigmas attached to race, nationality, religion, or ethnicity. These categories highlight the pervasive nature of stigma across different aspects of human life, demonstrating how deeply embedded societal biases can affect personal identity. The social construction of stigma. A key argument in stigma is that stigma is socially constructed. What constitutes a stigma varies depending on cultural, historical, and social contexts. For example, a physical disability might carry significant stigma in one society but be viewed more neutrally in another. Similarly, character blemishes and moral failings are often evaluated based on prevailing cultural standards of morality and behavior. Goffman introduces the concept of the virtual social identity, the identity society ascribes to an individual based on stereotypes and assumptions, and the actual social identity, an individual's real attributes and behavior. The gap between these two identities often determines the degree of stigma an individual experiences. Stigma and social interaction. Goffman explores how stigmatized individuals manage social interactions. He outlines several strategies used to cope with stigma. 1. Passing, hiding or concealing the stigmatized attribute to avoid social discrimination. This strategy is common among individuals with concealable stigmas, such as mental illness or sexual orientation. However, passing often comes with significant emotional and psychological burdens. 2. Covering, minimizing the visibility of the stigma without fully concealing it. For instance, someone with a physical disability might use clothing or accessories to divert attention from the stigmatized attribute. 3. Disclosure, openly acknowledging the stigma in social interactions. While this approach can foster understanding and acceptance, it also risks rejection or further discrimination. 4. Normalization, attempting to act as if the stigma does not exist, blending into social settings, and minimizing any focus on the stigmatized identity. These strategies reflect the complex and often exhausting emotional labor involved in managing a stigmatized identity. Stigma and identity management. Identity is a central theme in Goffman's analysis. He examines how stigmatized individuals reconcile their spoiled identity with their sense of self. The stigmatized person must constantly negotiate between their self-concept and society's perception of them. Goffman introduces the concept of spoiled identity to describe how stigma disrupts an individual's ability to claim a fully accepted soul identity. The stigmatized person often experiences a dual consciousness. They see themselves both through their own perspective and through the eyes of society, which often views them as flawed or deviant. Moreover, Goffman highlights the role of the wise, individuals who, while not stigmatized themselves, are sympathetic and understanding of the experiences of the stigmatized. These allies can provide support, facilitate acceptance, and create spaces where stigmatized individuals feel safe and valued. The moral career of the stigmatized. One of Goffman's key contributions in Stigma is the idea of the moral career of the stigmatized individual. This concept refers to the different stages an individual goes through as they become aware of their stigma internalize societal attitudes, and develop coping mechanisms. 1. First stage. The individual becomes aware of their stigmatized status, often through social interactions or explicit discrimination. 2. Second stage. The individual begins to internalize societal attitudes, which may result in shame, guilt, or self-loathing. 3. Third stage. The individual develops coping strategies, learns to manage social interactions, and may even become an advocate or activist for others with similar stigmas. This moral career reflects the psychological and emotional journey of living with a stigma, emphasizing both the challenges and the potential for growth and resilience. Stigma in Contemporary Society. Though written in 1963, Goffman's work remains strikingly relevant. Modern society continues to grapple with stigma related to race, gender, sexuality, mental health, physical disabilities, and socioeconomic status. Social media and digital platforms have created new arenas for both stigma perpetuation and resistance. For example, online platforms have allowed individuals with stigmatized identities to find community, share experiences, and challenge societal stereotypes. On the other hand, social media has also amplified stigma through cyberbullying, trolling, and public shaming. In healthcare, stigma remains a significant barrier to seeking treatment for mental health issues, sexually transmitted infections, and substance abuse. Goffman's insights remind us that addressing stigma requires not only structural changes, but also shifts in societal attitudes and interpersonal dynamics. Critiques of Goffman's approach. While stigma is widely celebrated, it is not without criticism. Some scholars argue that Goffman focuses too much on the individual's experience of stigma and neglects the broader structural forces that perpetuate inequality and discrimination. Others suggest that his analysis lacks intersectionality, failing to fully explore how multiple stigmas, e.g., race, gender, class, intersect and compound each other. Nevertheless, Goffman's work provides a foundational framework for understanding stigma and continues to inspire research across sociology, psychology, and anthropology. In Stigma, Notes on the Management of Spoiled Identity, Erving Goffman provides a nuanced and deeply human exploration of how individuals navigate the social consequences of being marked as different or deviant. His analysis highlights the emotional, psychological, and social toll of stigma, while offering valuable insights into the strategies individuals employ to manage their identity. Stigma, as Goffman reveals, is not merely an attribute or label. It is a social process rooted in interaction, perception, and power dynamics. Addressing stigma requires not only empathy and understanding at an individual level, but also systemic efforts to dismantle the societal structures and norms that perpetuate exclusion and discrimination. Goffman's work remains an essential guide for anyone seeking to understand the lived experiences of stigmatized individuals and the societal forces that shape their realities.